What up, what up, what up, what up, what up? What's going on, everybody? What is going on? Welcome to Blunt Thoughts. What, episode 52? Back to back nights of Blunt Thoughts. I know you guys had enough of me. So, for that, I said, you know what? Let me get a professional in here. Enough of the people hearing me talk garbage and nonsense and all the crap that I do. And let's get someone here who has real insights, who can maybe help us out. And, I reached out to him when the Mets season was over, but obviously the Yankees were still playing, so he was busy. He was like, "Hey, Hector, man, I still got work to do. I know you ain't got nothing to do because your Mets are out of it, but you got to calm down, buddy. Let me work." And then we'll talk about the Mets later on. And here we are. We're going to talk some Mets. We're going to get into all the fun stuff, all the rumors, what may or may not happen, what his outlook may be compared to what we're thinking. But again, I tend to talk a lot of nonsense, and we want to get him out here. Nice, tidy hour or so. So, without further ado, let's welcome someone who's become a very good friend to Blunt Thoughts, a very kind friend to Blunt Thoughts, and been very kind with his time and his knowledge and all that stuff. And here he is, my guy, Anthony McCarron. We see him on SNY, BNNY, Sports Night, and all that good stuff. And tonight we have him here on Blunt Thoughts. How you doing, Anthony?
I'm good, Hector. How are you? Thank you for having me once again. Always enjoy it.
No, I'm doing pretty good, and it's an honor. It's always been good conversations. Like I said, we usually go longer than we would like, but today we're going to try to do a little bit better, man. So thanks again. Like I said, I reached out right after the off season, but we were a little busy, and like you said a little while ago before we came on here, wishing we still had baseball going on. New
Yeah.
York baseball, not baseball, because as we see here, as Julio Rodriguez just hit a home run and the Mariners are up 2-1. Yeah, we wish it was one of our teams, either the Yankees or the Mets. At least there'll be, some action here in New York. But it is what it is. It is what it is.
Yeah, for sure, Hector. I mean, it's always a disappointment. And, the end of any season is so abrupt. When it happens in the regular season and then in the playoffs, it's just like, there's all this possibility in front of you. And then when a team gets eliminated, it's just boom. And it immediately, the switch flips to what's happening in the off season and how are they going to get better? How are they going to get past where they got to in that most recent season? And that's what we're kind of dealing with now, even as baseball itself still, goes on and on.
No, you're right. And talk about flipping a switch and how quickly it all happens, right? And sometimes it is in the playoffs if you're lucky enough to get there. Other times, if you're not lucky enough, it ends on the last day of the season when you have a chance and all you got to do is win a damn game. And you don't do it. And then, like you said, immediately the flip switches, boom, and you get coaches being fired. You get replacements coming in and all of that good stuff. And we'll get into that. But just your quick thoughts, Anthony. And I know it's been a while now, but again, this is when we have you. 2025. What did you see? What did you think went wrong? I mean, and I know there's many things, but
Yeah.
just your ideas on how 2025 broke down and all that good stuff.
Well, Hector, I mean, for the Mets, it was a crushing disappointment. It really was. I mean, this was a year that was supposed to be so much more than what it ended up being. And, there was a lot of failure across the roster. Moves that were made that didn't work out, or moves that were left sort of on the table and what have you. And it just turned into, a shame at the end because, they do have so much talent and, but they played so poorly for so long. I mean, I remember the last time we spoke, I mean, I was pretty bullish on the Mets. I thought that they had a lot in the tank and they had a lot more to give. And I thought they were eventually going to get there. And wow, it just did not happen. Specifically like the starting rotation, obviously, to me is the biggest part of it because it was just, it put them behind, in terms of getting innings. I think they were 27th in starter innings in the major leagues. And obviously that has a ripple effect on your bullpen. And so all this bad stuff was happening on the pitching side. They weren't really a great defensive team either. You could love some of the offense, but even, I don't know if I'll ever get over that August that they had where they just mashed like crazy and they were still 11-17 for the month. They set all those team records and everything. I, there were so many good things about it in terms of, Soto had a good first year, although there were stretches where you were wondering if he was going to be the Juan Soto. Alonso had a great bounce back year. He deserves whatever he gets in free agency, and it should be a much better time for him this winter than it was last year. Edwin Diaz is great. The emergence of Nolan McClain, I thought, was phenomenal, and I can't wait to see what he does next. But they have a lot of work to do on the roster, I think. There's all kinds of questions. I know a popular topic so far this offseason, Hector, has been, should this core stay together? And that's, to me, is very compelling stuff, because I think at some point the Mets certainly thought, a lot of their fans thought, I certainly thought that we would be talking about a team that would be a World Series contender every year. And, they haven't gotten there with this bunch yet. And now is this sort of a tipping point?
Absolutely, Anthony. And a lot there, but the last thing you said is something that I got to be honest. It bothers me that we're talking about that again.
Yeah.
It really does, because it's been a constant conversation. Is this score good enough? Is the score good enough? And you talk about being bullish about this team. I was bullish, Anthony, probably to maybe about the last 3 weeks. By the end of August, I was like, you know what? This is just ain't it. I'm gonna hope beyond hope that they get in there, but I don't even believe anymore.
Right.
Not even the slogan or anything like that. I need a reason to believe. I even had back and forth with our buddy Sal before he then flipped, where he was like all in on them. I'm like, what are you watching, my guy? Like, give me, Sal, give me something. I'm looking for something. Give me something to latch on to so that I can believe the way that you do. And then that it just never happened. Yeah, I was bullish about it, but the thing with the core, right? And I felt like in 2024, this core grew up and they learned how to win. I believed, and I kept saying this, oh yeah, I believed Pete Alonso when he told us, you know what, we don't want to be playing for our season in game 162. Well, here we were, and that's exactly what we got again.
Right.
I believed in Francisco Lindor and Brandon Nimmo growing into leaders that would probably be able to bring guys together and not let things unravel the way that they did. But unfortunately, and listen, I'm not going to put it on those guys. It wasn't all about, it was a lot of things. And mainly the pitching. Yes.
Yeah.
The pitching was the biggest problem. It was phenomenal to start, and there were people that were cautious, and they were like, no, this is not sustainable. And I was like, hey, let's not lose our minds. 2024, did we learn anything? Anything is possible. Let's give these guys the benefit of the doubt and all of this and so on and so forth. Again, I was bullish. I was bullish to the end. But for it to break out the way it did, it's just demoralizing, disappointing, and it leaves a lot of questions. That became a theme for me. Like, we watch this team every night, and we come away with more questions than answers. And the answers that we did get were unsatisfactory. They were unsatisfactory. They were.
Sure.
There was nothing that we wanted to see or we felt comfortable with.
One thing that they were, the players kept saying as things were sort of evening out to where they were not playing well, and that seemed to be what they were, was all we have to do is get into the tournament. All we have to do is get into the tournament. And after a while, look, I have no idea the mental fortitude it takes to become a Major League Baseball player. I mean, you have to be single-minded and driven and all of those things. And but to what level, I don't think you know it. I think the players know it. If you're outside looking in, it's harder to know exactly what it takes. But I do wonder, and it's fair to ask, and I think it's something that they're going to have to sort of face up to, is like, did that mantra become something that they sort of took in over everything else? Like, instead of actually getting the playing done, they kept saying, the good play done. They kept saying, oh, well, if we get in, we'll be as dangerous as anybody. Who knows what we could do? And I feel like they talked themselves into that, and then they forgot to get into the playoffs. And, whatever it was, ultimately, it wasn't good enough. They've got to be a lot better. They've got to clean up a lot of stuff. I hate the idea that you go back on the schedule and you sort of cherry pick these games. Well, if this guy had gotten a hit here, we would have won that one game, and then they would have been in the playoffs, and then who knows what would have happened. I mean, the story of the 2025 Mets is they weren't good enough. They didn't play well enough to get there.
Exactly.
And that's the bottom line to me. Oh, well, if Mendoza hadn't brought this reliever in the 6th inning, if he'd have brought him in the 7th inning, it would have changed everything, and we would have won that one game that would have got us into the playoffs. That's Monday morning quarterbacking at its most futile in my mind. They were not good enough, and now they've got an entire offseason to make sure that they're ready to play and ready to be good enough next year.
Absolutely. Two things there. One is you made me think of Brandon Nimmo, whom I love. Brandon Nimmo.
He's a very good player.
Frustrates the heck out of me lately, the whole in between. And I still need him to find that balance between that power hitter he wants to be and the great Brandon Nimmo that we fell in love with. That also frustrated us. Like, when he first came up, I've said this to you before, swing the bat, Brandon, swing the bat. Now he's swinging the bat maybe a little too much. Now you're striking out too much, Brandon. But whatever. But when he said, oh, teams are afraid to face us in the playoffs, I'm like, dude, he almost made me want to throw up.
They didn't have to worry about the Mets in the playoffs.
Exactly. Like, you guys are not going to be in there. And it's felt like all year they felt like they would just be able to talk about flipping switches. They'd be able to flip the switch and everything was going to work out. And obviously that never happened.
Right.
And then when we talk about, you mentioned Carlos Mendoza and some of the moves in the Monday morning quarterback. And to me, man, I kept saying, and I kept having this fight, and to the point that I got accused of being a Mendoza shill and this and that. And then I had the fortune that he invited me to a game and let me in the dugout and all that good stuff. So forget about it. Now it was like, oh, you'll never criticize Carlos Mendoza. Like, you guys don't know Hector. Like, and listen, I appreciate what he did, but it doesn't matter. I'm about winning. And if I see something, I'm going to say it. But at the same time, it was like, can these players get the job done?
Yeah.
Can somebody get the job done? Like, when no one is getting the job done, you're going to question everything you do.
Right.
It becomes hard to make the right move when everyone you go to, no matter what the situation, you had to read Gary pitch late in games, middle of the games, early in the games, and he would fit. Ryan Stanek, high leverage, low leverage, mid leverage, no leverage. And, give you a couple of good games. When he figured it out, put him in a high leverage or higher leverage, boom, there we go again, and so on and so forth. So, like, what is the guy supposed to do? But let me ask you this. There were some that were saying it's time to move on from this guy. Do you think that was valid? Were you ever at that point?
No.
Was there ever a question in your mind, like maybe Mendoza's not the right guy for the job?
Nope. Not even for one hot moment. Not at all. Look, teams that succeed and build sustainable winning don't generally change their managers every 2 years. And that's what this would have been. If you don't like Carlos Mendoza as a manager, I get it. Like, that's your preference. Like, if you want to dial down on, I'm not sure that the manager affects 162 games every single year. You know what I mean? Like, he affects a game here or there for certain. No question about it. Moves made or unmade have an impact. But the players are the ones, to me, that drive what the season is going to be by their performance. Hey, hit a ball, catch a ball, make a play, get something done on the field. And I think the manager is always the easy scapegoat because he's not the hero. He's not the one who hit the game-winning home run 3 nights ago that you love because you want your team to win. He's the guy who brought in the reliever who yucked it up in the game that you lost tonight, so it's all his fault. And
right.
I feel like if the Mets were to go down the road, now look, I mean, they have had a few managers in recent years, if I'm not mistaken, and they've gotten to they got to the championship series in 24, and that's great, and that's a building block, and that's something to they've been there. They can maybe they've got an idea what it takes to get there now. Maybe they can push it forward. I'm not sure that firing the manager because you had a disappointing year, if it's this second year after that season, is the right answer. Because then you're like, Buck was here for however long he was here, not that long. Louis Rojas, here and gone. Callaway, all those, you go back and I can't even remember if I'm remembering them all in order, Hector, but. Yeah,
I'm trying to think of them myself. And
winning organizations do not change the field leader every 2 seasons. I mean, look at I'm plucking now from another sport, but the Giants have had a bunch of
Oh
coaches
gosh.
in the NFL, and they stink. The guy's around for 2 years, they fire him, they get a new regime. Same, rinse, repeat. And the Giants ain't exactly lining up Super Bowl trophies. They've got some, but those are in the past now, and they need to get the program going. And that's I think their aim with keeping Brian Dable for right now, anyway. And that's what the Mets should do with Mendoza too.
Yeah,
They had a bad year. There's no question about it. Was it his best year managing? I bet he would say it wasn't, but he certainly deserves a third year. Now, that being said, Hector, I think if they're 22 and 31 next year and things are going poorly again, that's going to be very bad for him and his job security. And right or wrong, then the drumbeat will start, and it will be a daily storyline, and the Mets will have they'll have something to deal with there.
right. This is what I love about Blunt Thoughts and the conversations, right? Because I have my nice little outline that, no preparation. We got in here 2 minutes before. But just little points that I want to hit, but sometimes we go all over the place and the guest or the person joining me, whatever you want to call it, leads us right where we need to go. And that was going to be my next question. How much do you buy into, well, a couple of things. But one of them was going to be, how much do you buy into the fact that he's on a hot seat, that Mendy's on a hot seat to start out the season, and he needs to get off to a hot start. And I think about that, Andy. I'm like, you know what? The Mets have been off to hot starts before. I don't think it's so much about a hot start. And of course, 22 and 31, it might not be too pretty. But are they playing better baseball? Because one thing that we did see this year was this team lacked fundamentals. No
Yeah,
fundies. Shout out to
yeah,
Keith
they were
Hernandez.
sloppy.
Absolutely no fundies.
Yeah.
Do we put blame on that on Carlos Mendoza and his coaching staff? I think we kind of have to look at them like, especially you mentioned the list of managers they have. One guy whom we felt, if anything, always had this team prepared to the point that they were surprising us with some of the things that they were doing, like sliding in between bases to avoid rundowns or avoid whatever the heck it was, where we saw Brandon Nimmo that time was. Anyways, under Buck Showalter, the team seemed extremely prepared. And then to see what we saw this year, obviously
Yeah.
we have to put that on Mendoza. But I think that's also what's important, that not only they don't get off to a under 500 start, but that they're playing better baseball.
Yeah.
Definitely need to see that. The other thing is, you mentioned the Giants and the change of coaches and field generals in any sport. And one thing that I kept talking about this year was to Met fans, hey, just as baseball fans, I remember calling Sal, JJ on the overnights, Tony Page, going back years, right, on WFAN.
Who is who you got there, Hector?
Yeah, the even during the day, Moose when he was doing it, and then see all of that stuff. Dave Roberts stinks. What are the Dodgers doing? They need to fire Dave Roberts. They need to fire Dave Roberts. They need to fire Dave Roberts. It's been now, I think, the guy's been managing the Dodgers for at least 10 years. I say that to say.
And him and another popular manager, Aaron Boone, are like the only ones in baseball history to get to the postseason, like 8 out of their first 9 years, or whatever the number is. I don't have it off the top of my head, but those two guys are the only ones who have done it. And neither one of them. I mean, Roberts is popular now, obviously, but Aaron Boone seems to be a guy who's not that popular sometimes.
At all. But again, so my point is this, like, and I feel like, and I was saying this to a friend of mine, either yesterday or even earlier today. I feel like, and I'm just as guilty, right? Sometimes us, the fans, we make it uncomfortable for these people, whether it be a front office, whether it be a coaching staff. We all scream about these things need to change. Things are so bad. Look at the Jets, and probably not a good example because Aaron Glenn might not be the guy. But if things were so bad, how can you expect the new person, the new regime to come in and immediately change things?
Right.
It takes time. And I also say this, for the organization, it's very important, I feel like, if David Stearns and Steve Cohen believe in Carlos Mendoza and the plan and how he's implementing whatever the hell they're trying to do, then who cares how loud we get as fans?
Right.
If you believe in what you're doing, you need to stick to the process.
With Aaron Boone.
And I'm not into trust the process nonsense, but they need to stick to their process. Just make sure that eventually you need to pay it out. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Because then we're gonna go nuts. But yeah, so no, the regime changes. But now let's. How about the coaches? What did you think about the coaches that were let go, which is pretty much all of them, except for a few? And we'll talk about where they went and how.
Yeah, we don't know if some of the guys who were invited back, I don't know if that means that they're going to be back. The press
Right.
release was
I mean, the
worded
last thing we heard,
in a
Antoine
certain
Richardson, who
way.
was invited back,
Yeah.
they weren't able to come to terms just yet. Uh, Desi was given opportunity to look for a job. The bullpen guy, same thing, and whatever.
Yeah. Look, I mean, when teams fail as spectacularly as the Mets did, there are going to be changes like that. So it was not surprising. Um, you know, we'll see. I mean, we don't know that. The guy who came up as the hitting director of the hitting program. I mean,
What is
it's
that,
hard.
Anthony? What is that?
I
Can
don't
you
know.
help me out here with your expertise?
I
Like,
mean,
what the hell are we doing?
it's
Director of Major League Hitting?
it's
Are we
baseball.
are we seeing again where the GM is now the president of baseball operations and so forth and so forth? Where we're changing titles, making up
Well, it
titles
is.
to not
It's
lose
baseball
guys.
corporate. It's corporate baseball terminology,
Unreal.
and that's fine. I mean, like this guy apparently knows some of the younger hitters from when they were working their way up the minor. That's great. Great. Okay. Good. I'm happy to give him his chance. The same goes for the bench coach. I mean, it certainly is it's a shift bench coach wise from John Gibbons, who was an ex-player, an ex-manager, to a guy who didn't play professionally, and in Kai Correa, he's got some staff experience in the big leagues. But but he's much younger than Gibbons was, and there's all that stuff. So we'll see what happens with the coaches. And to me, I think it's important that they get a pitching coach, sooner rather than later, because to me, the pitching coach is part of the process of enticing pitchers to come to Citi Field and make it their place of employment, because I think they need to. I think the Mets need to, and I know we'll get into this. The Mets need to make some significant pitching moves, at least one significant pitching move, by getting a top of the rotation ace. And part of the way that you need everybody, all hands on deck for that sort of thing. So you can't go into the whole sweepstakes of free agency or even trades without having the guy who's going to be monitoring your new ace or your new hoped for ace. Anyway, he's got to be part of the recruitment process too. So as we go forward, they're going to have to get a pitching coach, and it's going to have to be a guy who can help recruit a star. In my mind,
Absolutely.
anyway. I don't know if that lines up with the Mets thinking or not, but I think more than anything, they need somebody who is going to get near 200 innings there and give you fairly elite production in terms of results as a starting pitcher. I don't want them to thrift the rotation again. I realize they have a lot of
Please.
inventory, Hector, with pitchers who are sort of there, and I don't mind that, because there's injuries happen, ineffectiveness happens, there's opportunity for all these guys. They don't all have to throw 200 innings, because the game isn't that game anymore. The Mets had three guys who pitched over who even got to 80 innings this year. They had three guys, and three guys, those guys all got over 100. But it's not like it's a staff of war horses anymore. But I think they do need one war horse, a game one type starter. And it's not Nolan McClain, who is still, as
No,
wonderful as
no, no, no.
he's still in his development program. He's still learning to be a major league pitcher. He is an incredibly enticing major leaguer to me. Far and away better than anything else they have in the system. Any other prospects? I mean, no offense to Brandon Sproat and Jonah Tung, they should never be mentioned in the same breath
No.
with Nolan McClain again. Until they get there and do what he's done. I know it's only a short bit of a season that McClain has been, but he was so overwhelmingly great that it's easy to dream on him. But how about getting them someone who can help teach Nolan McClain how to be an ace, because this guy's already an ace.
Absolutely. And I'm with you on 100% on everything you said there. They need a horse, a clear-cut ace, a stopper, a no-brainer, and you cannot rely on Kodai Senga or Shamanai to be that guy. I don't think it's fair to Nolan McClain. I don't think it's fair to the team. I don't think it's fair to the fan base to put that expectation on him. And he may very well become that guy.
Yeah,
We hope that he will. We can
and maybe
see.
pretty soon too.
Yes. He looks ready to go. He
Yeah,
came up. He was ready to go. There is no doubt about it, and I don't expect anything different. I still don't think you're going to the next season the same way that you went into this season with a bunch of question marks. The entire rotation, when we really look back at it, was full of question marks.
yeah.
Whether Kodai Senga was be able to stay healthy, what the heck was Sean Mania, Clay Holmes coming and making a transition. Who the heck is Shannon Fry? Griffin Canning. Why the heck was I going to call him Shannon Fry? Griffin Canning, the Tyler McGill, and then something that I've been thinking about from our preseason conversation. The guy that I asked, and I was saying, Anthony, can David Peterson make that jump and be that ace? And credit Anthony McCarron, who said to Hector, the dope, hey, Hector, what do you think about that innings jump that he's going to have to make
Yeah.
to be able to take that step? And we saw that. So we cannot go back into all those question marks because the question mark with David Peterson was it just the hip? Or is he really a good pitcher? Well, I think he showed that he's a good pitcher,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
but
Yeah.
but the innings came to bite him. Is he able to overcome that this next season coming up? I don't know, but I can't take a chance. I can't take a chance. So I'm definitely in line with you on the fact that that is the most important thing to me. That is,
Yeah. Oh,
and how
yeah.
we're gonna do it. We'll get into how they can do it, whether it be free agency trades, the names that are being thrown out there, and all that good stuff. But before we move on to that, just real quick on the coaches before we move on from that is, and great point by you, the pitching coach. Listen, we saw it that the Mets already were getting a reputation, a good one, with the pitching lab and Jeremy Hefner, and it had impact.
I think
It
Jeremy
had an
Hefner's a
impact.
good pitching coach.
Right, and
Yeah.
pitchers were already wanting to come here because of that, and they were seeing, especially after 24,
Yeah.
and all of the things that Severino, Mania, everything, so it's gonna be very interesting who they bring in and how that plays throughout the league. So yeah, I would think that they would want to get that done sooner rather than later. But on listen, the hitting coach thing, let me ask you this. What did you think about Eric Chavez's comments about the dual hitting coaches? And I think it was maybe misinterpreted a little bit. I don't think it's so much having two hitting coaches or multiple hitting coaches because we see there's plenty of teams that have that. But what I do see is that I looked up about 6 teams, Anthony, that had multiple hitting coaches, right? Out of those 6, 5 had one clear cut hitting coach, and these guys are the assistants. Only the Dodgers had them all labeled the same, all hitting coaches, whatever the heck they called them. Eric Chavez made the comments that he didn't think it was healthy to have two guys pretty much being the head. It should be one clear guy. What are your thoughts on that as far as the hitting coach?
I mean, I think that's something for the Mets to work out, Hector. I don't have too much of an opinion on it, to be honest with you. I do know that we live in an age, and it's across all sports now, where teams are going to have a lot of people involved. Listen, it's crazy to think about baseball. 30 years ago, front offices had, I can't even guess, but there were like 5 or 6 people who worked in the front office of a team. And now there's, hundreds of people in multiple departments doing all kinds of different things. So I get it. There are going to be a lot of coaches around. And that's up to the teams to determine what works for them. And it's honestly, it's the responsibility of the coaches to figure out a way to reach the players, the best way to reach the players. Some guys, some players want, a coach with them taking swings before games. How is that? How is that? Can we go in the cage? I want to work on breaking balls, blah, 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 all these things. And other guys are like, okay, yeah, let me take some swings and I'll be good. And that's fine.
Right, get the heck away from me.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, some of those, some people, some players don't do it that way. Other guys want
the same with all the data and stuff. I know the analytics. Some guys it may help. Other guys are not interested.
Right. So there are some of I want to know if what is his breaking ball when it's in this quadrant. what does his fastball look when he throws it in this quadrant?
Right.
And other guys are like, I'm going to try to, I'm going to look for a fastball and try to react to the breaking ball. But, I'll look at his pitches to see what they look like to get an idea, but I don't need to go into the big weeds there. And that's on the staff to figure out in my mind, who thrives with what approach, and figure that out. And, look, the biggest word in baseball administration these days is collaboration. And that's up to everybody to figure out how to collaborate best. I don't think the hitting coaches were the reason that the Mets failed last year. I know it's been a big thing for fans, because you see it all over social media. They want this coach fired. That coach has got to be fired. They got to do something about this guy. It's the coach. It's the coach. It's not the coach. The coach has an impact, but the player has the ultimate responsibility. They're the ones playing. Now, if your coaches aren't reaching the players, that's when you make moves like this. In years that are huge disappointments, that's when coaches lose their jobs.
Absolutely. And I think, see, I guess I go a little bit back and forth with it, but I think bottom line for me is, and I agree with you, and I think it's important whether there's one hitting coach or whether there's multiple hitting coaches to figure out what works best for what guys. Just like I hate the fact that I feel like in baseball now, they're trying to make every hitter the same type of hitter. Launch angle, try to hit the ball out, doesn't matter. 3 true
Look at the Yankee lineup.
Yeah, we don't care about batting average, and I hate that. I think you should try to accentuate guys' individual strengths, right?
Sure.
So that's how I feel about that. I also feel like there should be a clear-cut overall philosophy as to how we're going to approach things, what kind of hitting team we're going to be. Are we going to be aggressive? Are we going to be a team that works the count? And I know that also depends on the pitcher and so on and so forth. That gets modified series by series. But overall, you do take an identity as a team. We saw that the Mets wanted to do controlled aggression. And it drove us crazy as fans sometimes, watching the games. A pitcher walks a couple of batters. He's wild. There's this and that. You got a couple of guys on base. First pitch swinging, pop up to the second base. First pitch swinging by the next guy, pop up to the outfield. And now here we go. Once again, Mets leave guys on base. And it's like, man, what's with this approach? Can we make some adjustments? How about moving the guy over? But we know baseball doesn't believe in that stuff anymore. So that's frustrating. But I think for me, the most important thing is, and listen, maybe that's what it's going to be where this guy is what's his title? Director of Major League Hitting.
Something
and he
like
has
that,
been in
yeah.
charge of hitting. I did question and wonder, okay, was this guy doing one thing throughout the minor league system and then at the major league level we're doing a whole different thing? I didn't think it was a big deal because I think it was just a suggestion and just a conversation. But I even talked about it throughout the year, Anthony, when we saw a little bit of an adjustment period for Juan Soto, whatever we want to call it. And I'm thinking, okay, here we are. We bring in a guy who's known for working counts, for being patient, for not getting out of his, yet as a team, we're trying to be aggressive and swing early in counts. How does that vibe? How does that jive? You know what I mean? And then we saw that he talked about maybe we need to make Soto swing early in the count. Not that it was suggested, but some conversations that he had with Mendoza, whatever. So just can we all please get on the same page? That's all I ask from
Right.
this whole hitting coach and all of this nonsense that's going on there. The bench coach, though, to me, I thought it was going in something that Carlos Mendoza should have been heavily involved in, right?
Well, you don't
And
know that he wasn't.
yeah, you're right. I don't. But we think
But
he
also
was.
the standard operating procedure is not like that. That's an old school approach where the manager was the one who hired his coaches. That doesn't
Right.
happen the same way anymore. Like it's not, front offices hire coaches and managers have input. It's not the same thing as a manager calling up a guy he worked with in Visalia, 12 years ago and saying, like we were together there coming up through the system, why don't you come to the big leagues with me? Like it doesn't go that way anymore.
No, but I feel like if anything, right, it should be someone because it is somebody that you should be able to look over to and say, what do we do? And trust that this person, whatever advice they're giving you, is in the best interest of the team and trying to win, right? Not because this guy is over here angling for your job, maybe.
Well,
And
I
you know,
mean,
when this guy
presumably
gets
the
high, it's like, oh well, this guy's a great replacement for Carlos Mendoza. I'm like, man, is that really the environment that we want?
Yeah, I mean, I'm
I,
not sure that's what this guy is, though. I mean, we need a little more data than to draw a conclusion like that.
right.
I mean, he's just been like what was he hired like 8 days ago? Like uh, I don't think we have any.
Yeah, but you know, the conversation right away is like, oh well, he was already a hot commodity. There were teams that were reaching out, or he might have himself have gotten a job. Does that mean that he was given assurances by David Stearns that he's a replacement? Like these are the things that go around. You know, so like I said, this is why we have someone like you, much more knowledge, who can put us in our place. Because you know, I'm a dope, and then I talk to a lot of fans, and
I
a
wouldn't
lot
say
of stuff
that.
comes.
I do find, I mean, in general, Hector, I think there's way too much attention paid from the outside to the coaching staff. Like I don't think that they're they do a job, and most of the time it's done well by people who know a heck of a lot about baseball. But I'm not sure that they are, that coaching staffs are sinking teams. Like the 2025 Mets didn't fail because of the coaching staff. I can't stress that enough. Like the 2025 Mets failed because the roster did not perform. Injuries happened. And there were moves here and there that didn't work out. But it's
I
not
was gonna
because.
say more than the coaching staff. How about maybe the front office?
Yes, of course, of course. Some of the stuff that they did not work out, and they are now paying the price for that because they've got to fix it. And there's a little. I think there's a little bloom off the rose in the front office now too, because they had such
Absolutely,
a trying year.
absolutely. Um, Shout out to everybody who's watching and joining in on the comments and all that stuff. And I'm gonna try to do a better job tonight to get to some questions, but we are gonna try to get Anthony out here before 10 o'clock, by 10 o'clock. So we have about 23 minutes or so, I guess. But there's a question here that pertains to what we're talking about. My guy Easy brings up Ron Washington and says he should be definitely interviewed for third base or infield coaching job. And that I was gonna ask that before.
I
And I'm like,
love Ron
why am I
Washington.
gonna bother Anthony with that? But what do you
Ron
think about the
Washington's a
names?
great, like he's a great baseball man, and he's a phenomenal infield coach. I mean, I know the anti-Chavez people aren't going to want to hear this, but he helped make Eric Chavez into a 6-time Gold Glove winning third baseman when Chavez played for Oakland. Chavez thinks the world of Ron Washington, and Eric Chavez was one hell of a fielder when he played. Ron Washington is a tremendous baseball guy.
So you would co-sign Ron Washington being part of the staff. What do you think about all the names that were being thrown around? Gardo Alfonso's, even Manny Ramirez as a hitting coach, which I think it's really a thing that he's trying to do. But shout out, hey, listen, go do it, Manny. That's my guy. But what did you think about all the names and of course as fans, that's what we want to see, right? Bring in the name Carlos Beltran as a hitting coach, Edgardo Alfonso, that was me, as a third base coach, maybe an infield coach, and all of that good stuff. Where did you stand up? Did you want to see maybe any of those guys involved? Did you care? Doesn't matter.
I mean, I have to be honest. I have not dialed down on potential coaches at this point. I'm not like I'm more interested in. Honestly, I'm more interested in Tarek
And the
Skubal.
players,
Yeah,
right? Hey, let's get to that. Let's
yeah. I
get to
think
that, Anthony.
that was a fast. Like I don't want to get bogged down on the coaches in turn
Right.
when we've got this big tasty steak waiting for us, Hector, because I think that Tarek Skubal is a fascinating topic. I mean, it has reverberations throughout baseball, and the problems that the game has, because there's a team out there that may feel like that they have to trade the best pitcher in the game because he's going to command an incredible free agent contract when he gets there. So they have to trade him a year before, which hurts their window to possibly win the World Series after they just made the playoffs for 2 straight years. There's a lot there, but what I mainly am fascinated with him is that he's the bell cow that we were talking about before, Hector. He's the top of the
Yep.
rotation monster. He pitched great in the postseason. He's going to be the Cy Young Award winner for the 2nd straight year. And just one little bit of trivia to sort of indicate how rare that is. I think there's only been 4 other pitchers who have won back-to-back Cy Young awards in the American League. And it's pretty good company because it's Pedro, Roger Clemens, Jim Palmer, and Denny McLain. And, Denny McLain's the last guy to win 30 games in a season. It's pretty remarkable company that Skubal would be in if he were to win it. And if he really is available, I think the Mets have to do almost everything short of trading Nolan McLean. I don't think they should trade McLean, but they should do almost anything else to try to make him a Met.
Wow. Talk about, damn, I lost the word that you just said, but phenomenal. How about Kyle Raleigh? Phenomenal year for that guy. He just hits a solo home run.
Was that him that just hit the home run? I got the game on in the back over there.
Yeah, I got it on myself here. And Seattle's now up 3-1 in the fifth. Yes, 3-1 in the top of the fifth. But yeah, so I would think, right, Anthony, as yes, we talked about it. What is the main need for this team? And it's pitching, and it's his horse. It is that clear cut ace. I would think, and I think you made it clear. Tariq, whatever the heck it is, Tariq Skubal, is number one, right? If he's really available, that should be the number one target. And like you said, anybody but Nolan McLean. But because I was going to ask, like, are there any untouchables for you when it comes to a trade of that magnitude?
I mean, just him, just McLean.
Now I have a question for you though, because whenever that comes up, the next thing is an extension. And should the Mets ask for a negotiating window, a la Johan Santana, and we've seen it happen a few other times with a team trade for a player.
They traded for Lindor and then signed him to a contract
without a window. But I think my question is, does the package change for you? Because I had a conversation last night with I do something where I call a super fan, and he's also like a content creator, whether he wants to say he is or not. Does spaces on X, and we had this conversation, and for him, I think it was maybe a Carson Bench, where he was like, I wouldn't include a guy like Carson Bench if I can't get an extension. If I get an extension, I include everybody. It doesn't matter, except for McLean. For McLean. Does the package change for you? My question is, does the package change for you whether you're able to get an extension with him or not? Or do you say, you know what, we'll make the trade anyway? Well, as for the window, if we don't make the extension, we're still willing to make the trade, but the package has to be a little bit different.
Yeah, look, I mean, if they make a trade for this guy, it's going to hurt. Like, you can't keep all your prospects.
Yes.
They're not all going to be good anyway. They never are. Some of them are, but some of them are ultimately disappointments. And, how good Skubal is, and you know what he would impact. And if you get him to New York, even for the 1 year, and, I know that he's, he'll never sign an extension. I get it. I understand that's, the way things generally are. You got to get to free agency, I know. But if you let him go elsewhere in a trade, then you run the risk of them basically convincing him how great it is in, I don't know, Philadelphia or San Francisco or wherever it is, if you let somebody else trade him out from under you. This way, if you get him for the 1 year, the Mets are officially in win now mode every single year. There's no kicking the can down the road when you sign Juan Soto to $765. There's no kicking the can down. Our window is 28. Our window is 29. No, now is the window. And if that means that they have to suffer a little bit on their process, like, you can't hug all the prospects. I know that there are people out there that they love Nick Morabito more than anything. You can't get rid of this guy in any deal. And I'm not ripping him, because he's a very nice player. Like, he's very impressive. But like, you can't keep them all, and they exist to make the major league team better, whether it's by being a star on the major league team or a role player on the major league team or a trade piece to get somebody that's desperately needed on the major league team, like Tariq Skubal. So yeah, I mean, you can look at trying to lower the price. You could also look at the idea, and I can't imagine that the Tigers would do this, taking on a bad contract also to lower the prospect costs. But look, I wrote this down in advance of our talk, Hector. The Tigers had the first overall pick in 18 and 20. They had the third overall pick in 21. They had and 23, and they had the fifth overall pick in 2019. So some of these guys, not all of them, are in the majors now, and so that they have a pretty, they've been in the playoffs 2 years in a row. They haven't gotten it done, but their window's open now too. So you know, they're going to have to do something as well. Like, so maybe so they're not going to give you a bad contract if it's a Javi Baez who actually became a good part of their team this year. Not that he's a good player anymore, but he was
Right.
helpful to them, at least
He
in a
was a
way
good
they
piece.
hadn't been for a few years. But maybe that way, because their window's open, can you give them somebody who was on your major league team to lessen the prospect cost? Is that something that you can make a play with them and change things around? I don't know the answer, but I think the Mets need to wade into this pretty deeply and see what it would take to get him, because of all the things they need, that to me is number one.
Absolutely. And a couple of things there. One is going to be my disclaimer that I put out there when I talk about these things, and the first, and that is, first of all, to me, it is terrible. And okay, maybe a Tyreek Schoolboy, I understand, but the fact that these conversations are being had, even for Freddie Peralta with Milwaukee, who has an $8 million option, and they're talking about trading him. The fact that a guy like Hunter Green's name comes up for Cincinnati Reds. Some people are even throwing out there, is it time to start talking about trade of the Pirates of a Paul Skeens? Like, if the Pirates traded Paul Skeens, they should be kicked out of the damn Major League Baseball, in my opinion. I'm sorry. Like, listen, I want all of these guys. If they become available, go out there and make a play for them. But as a baseball fan, it makes me sick that some
Yeah.
of them are available. It,
Yeah,
it
it's
really
not great.
does.
It's not great.
It makes me sick. But you also said something that I was watching a video of Joe Sherman earlier today talking about Scooby, and he said the same thing you said. Fans need to realize that for the Tigers to trade Scooble at this point, it's going to hurt them. It's
Yeah.
going to hurt them. Therefore, it needs to hurt us if we're the ones that are able to make that trade as Met
Absolutely.
fans and the
Absolutely.
Mets, whatever the package you also give up in return. That's the reality. And so I always laugh when people come up with these trade packages and it's like, really?
Yeah, right. It's like Sean Manaea, and then the 30th prospect, and also
Jeff McNeil.
Jeff McNeil. Right.
Like,
Well, all the guys that you've been dreaming about are all in play here. All the prospects that you've been dreaming about should be in play in a deal like this. The Tigers are going to ask for Nolan McLean. It's up to the Mets to say no, obviously, but they're going to ask for Jet Williams. They're going to say, hey, Carson Bench seems to have made some leaps over the past year. We like him too. We want him. Jonah Tong is very impressive. We want him. Brandon Sproat, we want him too. Those are guys that are on our list. And like it's going to be, this isn't, 18th and 19th best prospect and, some guy off the major league roster that you weren't really using and didn't love anyway. Like that ain't it.
Right. Now let me ask you this. Let me ask you on this comment here, from MEZ again. And he says, I'm not trading, and I don't like to get into packages and what it would take because none of us know nonsense. But I will touch on this, including a Spro and a Tong for Scooby. Do you consider that too much? Both of those guys in the deal?
It depends on what else it is. What I mean, what if that gets it done? What if those two guys and I don't know, some lower level prospect gets it done?
That's a good point.
Then you got Tarek Skubal. In
That's
your wildest dreams, Jonah Tong or Brandon Sproat, and if those wild dreams are very unlikely, becomes Tarek Skubal. If not those wildest dreams, then what if they become Griffin Canning? No offense to Griffin Canning.
Yeah, exactly.
But you have to sort of differentiate when you think of your best prospects in your system, every single fan thinks of it as like, this guy is going to be a star. He is going to be one of the best players in baseball. And there are only so many best players in baseball. It doesn't all come true. Ahmed Rosario was once the highest rated prospect in baseball.
Yes, I talk about that all the time.
Yeah. Do you think that he has had a career that represents the value that he was held at that time? And I'm not criticizing him because he's had a decent career and he's lasted a long time and he's still got more play He'll probably be on a pretty good Yankee team next year if they're smart enough to re-sign him as a right-handed lefty killer. But think about that. When he was a Met prospect, he was the shortstop for the next 10 years. He was their future Francisco Lindor, and it didn't happen with his career.
No, agreed. Got another one here, which one it actually drives me crazy, Anthony. It really does, and is the whole Scuba that's represented by Boris. He's going to free agency. Don't mortgage your future for a rental. The Mets need better position players as well to win the World Series.
All right,
here's
my response to that. Okay, if you really want to hug all the prospects, I get it. They're attractive and they're inexpensive, and you already have some aircraft carrier contracts on the roster, but you're going to have to get a pitcher somewhere. Where's it coming from? Then go to the free agent market where it's only money. Get Framber Valdez. Get somebody like that. One thing about Framber, I know he gets a lot of hate nowadays because of that cross-up controversy with the catcher and all that stuff.
To me.
wasn't a great episode for him, but he also consistently delivers innings, high quality innings, and the Mets need that desperately. They need that more than hoping against hope that every prospect hits. And this only costs money, and Steve Cohen has money, so they've got to get it somewhere. Look, I understand the hesitation about him being a free agent after the season, but I don't know. Look at what happened. I'm going back in Met history here, but Mike Hampton actually turned out to be a pretty good trade for the Mets. They weren't slaughtered on what they gave up. I know he didn't stick around, but they did get to the World Series on his watch, and he pitched great for them. I mean, they do have that's a prominent example of where it didn't work to 100%, but it worked pretty darn well. Wouldn't you like to take a crack at the World Series next year with Tarek Skubal pitching game 1, 4, and maybe 7, or 1 and 5 and a 5-inning relief appearance in Game 7? These are the choices that David Stearns and his lieutenants have to think about.
No, well, listen, absolutely. We got about 8 minutes left, so I want to try to hit on a couple of other things, but I think we've established that the Mets need to go out there and get themselves an ace, a horse, and I'm with you that if it's not a trade for Scuba, who's the clear-cut ace, then Framber Valdez, as far as free agency, is my number one guy as well.
Yeah,
that's I don't give a damn about the pitcher cross-up. I need that fire.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And then we'll figure it out.
As I told Sal on BNNY when he was killing me for that, I said, "Why are you so judgmental, Sal? The guy's got fire." I mean, it's okay.
Somebody like Sal, you're like, come on, guy.
Yeah, does he think
that's us. Right.
These are competitors.
As we get into Pete, my guy Jeffrey chimes in here, and he said the same thing last night, and I kind of agree with him. We focus a lot on the pitching, and he says, Hector and Anthony, I feel like the offense is getting a pass. Everyone brings up the pitching, but this team scored 12 runs in their final 5 games against the Nats and Marlins and won 1 and 4. That's fair.
I mean, those are facts, no question, and that's right. And they did not. There were a lot of attention paid to the comment that Steve Cohen had on Twitter about the Fab Four, and the not so Fab Four was what came after that, unfortunately, and then their offense just fizzled as well. I mean, that's why, and that's one of the reasons why I'm fascinated by the Pete Alonso free agency, because where are the Mets replacing that offense? Like the one thing about Pete, I said this the other day on BNNY also, Hector, it's the baseball offseason when we all forget how good Pete Alonso really is, because it seems like we get to the nitpicking portion of the program where he is, he doesn't run the bases well. He's not very athletic. The fielding is killing them. He's not a good fielder. He's good at scoops, but he's not very good at most of the other stuff. But man, he is going to produce runs. He's going to drive them in. He had 80 extra base hits this year, one of 6 guys in the big leagues to have that many. And the other guys were like Judge and Ohtani and all these other monsters of the game. I feel like, and I hope that this is true. I hope this is what happens with him. I hope Steve Cohen overrules the front office, because I'm sure that like analytical GMs don't want a wrong side of 30 first baseman clogging up the roster. Pete's half a DH at very soon anyway, and I get it, I understand it, but 35 his worst year ever, he had 34 home runs. And it happened to be his free agent platform year. And then he came back when everybody was saying, oh, prove it, Pete, prove it. And he had 126 RBI, a tremendous season. I feel like that, there's at least 4 more seasons like that in Alonso. And I'm hoping that Steve Cohen overrides any reluctance on the part of the rest of the organization to bring Pete back, and makes him kind of like a present to fans who showed up this year and set the Citi Field attendance record as, here's your, I know you love this guy. Here's your guy. And now we'll work on the rest of the team, but we have first base set and Pete is it. We're going to work with him on his defense, and then we're going to watch him hit all those home runs again. And we'll all going to have a great time.
Now, do you have a cap as to how far you be willing to go? And listen, the 7 years, I don't I mean, come on,
That's
7
not,
years.
I
I
don't
don't.
think that's happening. I don't think
Yeah, I
he'll
don't
get
think
that on
that's
the market.
happening. I
I
don't
think
think
the
anyone's
marketplace
comfortable.
yeah,
Yeah,
the
I don't think anyone's
marketplace will,
comfortable.
yeah,
Right.
the marketplace will knock that down. I can't imagine he gets 7. And if he gets 7, he should take it.
Yeah.
I mean, if he wants 7 and needs 7 somewhere, and the Mets aren't willing to give him 7, I guess this is where they part. That would be where they part ways. But yeah, I mean, ideally 4 or 5 years, I think, would be good for Pete. If it has to be 6, you know, and he's a late career DH who's hitting some big tanks at age 36, then I probably could live with that. But I don't think I don't think an extra year is a crippler here. But I mean, we'll see. Free agency, you lose your control when they are on the market. Teams lose their control, and who knows what could happen. I mean,
You
last
know
year it worked in their favor because
that qualifying offer was a big thing
yes,
behind that. I think,
right, and
and that
the
doesn't exist this
marketplace
year.
didn't value Pete, I think, the way that Pete and his reps believed it would, and that helped him get back to the Mets, which it was turned out to be a good place for both sides.
Yeah, but I don't think that's gonna be there this year. And I think Pete this year more than ever really is out for his respect, and is gonna probably, instead of giving the Mets a discount, a hometown discount, gonna charge them a premium for not getting that respect earlier. But yeah, I listen. We're right in line. I want Pete back. There's a lot of fans that don't want him back. There's a lot of fans that don't see the value in Pete. There's a lot of fans that say, Pete is nothing better than a DH, maybe on a winning World Series team, as we saw a comment there. And some people feel like Pete is holding his team back, which to me is
Well,
totally ridiculous.
and it's also look. I mean, along those same lines, like if you do believe that the Mets core needs a shakeup, that's the easiest way to do it, is to
Yeah,
not re-sign him. I mean, it would be hard to trade Brandon Nimmo, I think. Unless you're eating a lot of the contract, it'd probably be hard to trade Lindor. Those kind of guys. Like Jeff McNeil is kind of, to me, on a lower rung of the quote core, and he might be an easier trade. I think he has 1 year left on his deal. So maybe there's something there that they could pursue. But I mean, if the Mets inside believe that they need to do something with the core, then the easiest way to do it is to let Pete go.
absolutely, absolutely. And you just kind of touched on two things that I was going to bring up there real quick, and was what you said. You kind of, and I guess kind of touched on this. You said you would like for Steve Cohen to step in, and Jeffrey was asking, Anthony, when is Cohen going to go scorched earth? Obviously, he's 1,000% better than the Wilpons, but it seems like sometimes he is too concerned with not bidding against himself for players he wants.
Well, I mean, look, I always think about this when I think about the owners. It's this very exclusive group of really successful, really rich people who have been very good at what they do in their other businesses, that have allowed them to buy incredibly expensive things like Major League Baseball teams. So when they go to their owners' meetings, Do you think that Steve Cohen wants to hear like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you paid that much for that guy"? Like, do you think he
Right.
wants to hear like the locker room talk amongst owners, if such a thing exists? In my imagination, it does exist.
Right.
So does he want it's like, I'm not going to, I'm not listening to that nonsense about signing Alonso for X, so we're not doing it. I don't know. Is that something that happens? It's fun to think about it that way, but you know, is it even good for the game if he just outspends everybody and buy? I mean, I remember there was years and years and years ago when George Steinbrenner was in his full roar. The Onion did a hilarious little bit about how George bought every player in baseball, and it was very funny. And it was, but it also like had a little point to it too. Like, is he supposed to buy every player now? Uh,
Right.
who's he been outbid
But
for?
then again, it seems like the Dodgers are doing that, or at least trying to, and
Well,
they
Juan
don't they
Soto's on
don't
the
care.
Mets.
Yeah, yeah.
Which
But the Dodgers
player has the
did
most
try.
expensive contract?
Say
I
again?
mean, if you're gonna sort of parse every single one, that Yamamoto went to the Dodgers. Well, he wanted to be on the Dodgers. He didn't want to
Yeah,
be on the Mets.
yeah.
I mean, would Yamamoto be on the Mets if they had upped their offer to $350 million? We don't know the answer to that because he wanted to be a Dodger and he got 325 from them, which was the same thing that the Mets reportedly offered him, right?
Yep, yep.
So,
Anthony,
oh, go
go
ahead,
ahead.
Hector.
No, 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 no.
No, I'm good. You
No, I
go.
was gonna say we've hit that hour, so I want to kind of keep to my word. If you allow me 2 or 3 minutes, just let's go back to Jeffrey here because I think this is important. If
Sure.
at all, who do you think is most likely to be traded? Mark Vientos, Jeff McNeil, you mentioned, or Francisco Alvarez?
My out of those three, I think the most likely to be traded is McNeil, just
Okay.
because they have other options for him. I know he's a valuable player. I thought honestly, I thought he had a fine year last year. I don't think he had a great year last year. I thought it was during the season his him getting better, hitting better, like got a little bit overrated. Like he was having this fantastic type season. I don't think he had a fantastic season. It was fine. It's good that he can play a bunch of different positions. I'm not sure what maybe Vientos is I don't know what his value is now because he backslid last year, and I think and Alvarez I feel like is unlikely just because that a young catcher like that is there aren't any.
Anthony, I think of Travis Darno when I think about San Francisco. Obviously, different talent levels, but the fact that the kid Darno was injured often and kind of like never was able to get that full traction to take off. You know what I'm saying? And we
Oh, the
saw what
Mets.
happened when.
Well, the Mets blew it with Darno, though,
Yeah,
Hector.
yeah, yeah.
They
So,
blew it.
I'm a little worried that they may do the same thing here with Alvarez. So,
Yeah,
I'm willing to give Alvarez more time. I'm a big
yes.
Marvientos guy. I did somewhat what's called for me a deep dive into the numbers of Mark Vientos, and I can't get away from the fact the guy he just had tough luck. He had tough luck. When you
Yeah, there
look at
was
a lot
some
of
of
his
that.
numbers, they're like right there with 2024. It's just that it just didn't happen for him. So I'm interested to see what happens. And I don't think they'll just give up on a guy like Mark Vientos, no matter how much fans say he doesn't fit, he doesn't have a position. The guy's making $700,000, just about. Probably makes, if he's lucky, he maybe makes close to $1 million this year and can hit you 30 home runs. I'm not giving up on that. I'm sorry.
That's fair.
I'm just
That's
not.
fair. I just wonder what the team thinks of him now. I mean,
Yeah,
he's not part of this regime's bunch of players.
that's true.
You
Fair.
know what I mean? Like they didn't draft him, so does that have an impact on things? And
But
they
it's the
do
same
have
for like a Ronnie, an Acuna, Beatty, almost all of these guys, right? So
right,
we'll see.
right, and they do have all those guys you mentioned form kind of a weird log jam around the corners, and and in Beatty and Acuna's case,
I
those
think
second base.
definitely they need to kind of like clear that up. So you may have to move those guys just for the sake of moving guys,
Right.
just to clear some of that nonsense up. So I don't want to go back into this competition at third base and give a guy a job and let's freaking go. Whether
Right.
that means you go out there and you get a better player, through trade or anything like that. I want to get you out of here, Anthony, real quick, real quick.
Sure. Go ahead.
I don't need Edwin Diaz. I think it's a formality. He'll be back. He's gonna
I
opt
hope
out, in
so.
my opinion, because he
He
has to.
should. He should opt out.
Yeah, yeah. He has
Yeah.
to opt out. Like that's the responsible thing to do. But I don't think he's someone that's out here trying to break the bank or anything like that. We saw last time his deal came through pretty quickly. I've been saying lately, I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know if they can do it now, but if we get an announcement in the next couple of days during the World Series, right after the Mets and Edwin Diaz have come to an extension agreement or whatever the case may be. So I'm not worried about Edwin Diaz. Your thoughts on Edwin Diaz, whether the Mets should bring him back. Like if Anthony's going to say no.
Oh no, 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 no. This guy's got to come back. And look, it'll be pricey, and I know that the idea of paying a lot of money for a closer is some front offices don't like that idea because they feel like you can find them, you can make them. I get it, but the Mets have a ton of work to do on the bullpen next year. And
That was going to be my next quick
yeah,
rapid fire
and like
question.
how do they?
Would you bring any of those guys back, Anthony? Helsley or Rogers? Hell no. Maybe so.
I don't know.
Takes a deep breath.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm still look. That didn't work. Obviously, building the super pen at the deadline. I thought it was a great idea at the time. I was all thumbs up about that, and it just didn't work. So yeah, I don't know. And some of them might command some, good reliever money. But I do think it starts with Diaz, and if they don't bring him back, I mean, I can't imagine that like triples the workload on the bullpen.
Oh my gosh.
In terms of what they have to acquire, because they would need a closer then. I mean, I think Brooks Raley will be back, and AJ Minter will be healthy. So there's they've got some inventory, but then they've got guys who had Tommy John, and so they need relievers. And I wonder if some of the guys excuse me, I wonder if some of the guys that were mentioned in the last question are liquidated for relief help in terms of trades. Like I wonder if that's what a McNeil ends up being, if he is indeed traded or something like that. Is there a move to be made? And there are guys on the free agent market, and there's a million ways to build a bullpen these days, but you got to do it because it's so important in today's game. And it's so weird because they're so combustible all the time. You get a guy who pitches great for a half year, and then he's terrible. And, and it's not like relief pitching and monitoring and maintaining and acquiring for a bullpen is not an exact science.
Agreed.
But Diaz is like a sure thing. So that's one of the reasons why, in a world of unsure things, relief pitching, Diaz is as close as you get.
Yes. I'm gonna get you out of here, Anthony. Last one from the viewers here. Alex Bregman. Any interest in Alex Bregman on the Mets?
I don't. I think they have third base solutions elsewhere. I know he's a well-respected player. I don't love him. I don't like the cheating scandal, and I don't like the way they reacted to being caught to it. And I thought he was one of the guys who reacted poorly to that. Kind of like defiant, and so I don't know. And I know he's a good player. I know he helped the Red Sox this year, but he's also going to be an expensive player. And is that where they should be spending the money? He seems to me as a guy in the buy everyone type category. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, they don't need a high-priced third baseman. They've already got high-priced guys, and they need to bring back a couple of their own high-priced guys and get a high-priced pitcher. I think those are priorities over a Bregman. And to me, those are my priorities over Bregman. Maybe not theirs, but he does help on defense. He's a gritty player who has won in the past. So those are all positives for him. But just like, I feel like there's better ways for them to spend the money that would be devoted to him.
I think I'm in line with you on that. And the last one from me here, Anthony, as we get out, I think I may have asked it already, but I want to ask it again. Get your final thought on it. Do you think David Stearns is finally going to come out of his comfort zone and remember that he is now the president of baseball operations of the New York Mets with a billionaire owner that, listen, maybe if you make a Frankie Montas move in Milwaukee, you would have been handicapped for 2 seasons.
Right.
You can easily ignore that now and move away from it.
You can breeze past that.
Right. Is he going to be able to do it? What is your overall feeling as we go into this offseason? Please make me feel good.
I think that they will make the pitching move that they need to make. I wish I could tell you which one it was. I wish I could tell you it was going to be the Skubal deal
What are
and
you,
extension, which would be my
Anthony
preference.
Nostradamus? No, you're Anthony McCarron. It's okay.
Right. I mean, that would be great if it were that. But I think they will make the pitching move because I think that it's, I don't know, it's an obvious way to be much better. And to me, like, you know,
But will it be one of those high powered pitching moves? I don't even know what to call it that we're talking about, or is it going to be another one of those that we're like, oh boy, low risk, high reward type?
Oh,
of
as I like to call it, like a thrift
the thrift
rotation.
Yes,
Yeah, I mean,
yes.
I hope that they move past that now. Look, I mean, there's every chance that the rotation could be good next year with a really big ad, and then Nolan McLean, and then you know, a rebound. I mean, Senga's got a lot of talent. He's confounding as heck, but when he's healthy and pitching well, I mean, the problem is everything has to be perfect for this to happen,
crazy.
which is maddening, of course. And I'm sure the Mets feel the same way. You know, but Minaya was great in 24. Obviously, there's got to be some bounce back from some of these guys, so that there is some hope for the pitching. But I do think it starts with the big move, and whether that's getting our guy Framber for just money, or whether it's the sacrifice some of the prospects and then try to sign Skubal long term, you know, for clearly the best pitcher presumably available. Excuse me. You know, I think they make the move though.
Anthony, as always, you've been great. You've been very kind. An extra 11 minutes plus here.
I'm putting it on your bill, Hector.
Yes. Send it in. Greatly appreciated. Expect that message from me coming up probably around the hot stove or stuff like that. And you know we'll definitely do what's become our annual preseason or whatever the heck we call it.
Sure,
as we
I'd be happy
season.
to.
Yeah, season preview right before the season. But again, man, Anthony, you're the greatest, man. Thank you so much. Have yourself a good night. And let's go Mets, man. Let's go Mets. And we'll be looking out for my guy Anthony. Don't forget BNNY, Sports Night in New York, all that good stuff. Make sure you check that out. Him, Sal, and all the good people over there.
Well, thanks for having me, Hector. I enjoyed it as always.
Thank you, brother. Have a good night.
Okay, you too. Take care.
All righty. And there it is, ladies and gentlemen. There it is. Again, hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you again to Anthony for being so kind with his time. I'm not going to blabber on here too long. It's been 2 days of me. I'm tired of hearing me talk. So, hope you guys enjoyed it once again. We got some stuff working. I think we'll be here next week. We're thinking about maybe we take next week off or not. We said a couple of weeks ago we were going to take some time off to, you know, focus on us. And we haven't done that because we have so much fun. We have so much fun doing this. To those that watch on YouTube, that have taken a liking, and some of you maybe watch on X, but go and watch the Morning Blunt, the Mets Morning Blunt when that comes out. There was no Morning Blunt today. We'll be back on that tomorrow. Other than that, as always, let's go Mets. Don't do anything I wouldn't do, and have yourself a good night. Peace.
Full of animals and we made ourselves with minimal. Fuck you, no subliminals. Putting in this work, nigga. That's why they feelings hurt, nigga. Swear we need a hearse cause we rep our shites to the dirt, nigga. If I'm in the club,